For the average person, owning one classic car would be a lifetime goal. But we're about to take you inside a collection that features hundreds of rare and classic cars that are some of the finest specimens in the world. It's Don Garlits' Antique Car Museum, and it's next on Topcoat's Magnificent Machines. Welcome to Topcoat's Magnificent Machines. You know, Don Garlits made his name as a drag racer, and he did it in a shop a lot like this. In fact, some of his original tools from 1956 are right here in this exhibit. But Garlits isn't just a racer. He's also an automotive historian and an aficionado. And if you don't believe me, just take a look here at his Antique Auto Museum in Ocala, Florida. If you love pristine antiques or cars with an amazing history, you're going to love the next half hour. Let's take a look at our first magnificent machine. Ford's Model T is regarded as the first car that regular folks could afford, and Don Garlits can trace his 1926 flivver back to the original owner who bought it over 90 years ago.
Clem Pigg, P-I-G-G, from Mount Airy, North Carolina, rode his mule to Winston-Salem to the Ford dealership, paid the $450 more or less for this car, never tested it, never did anything, got on his mule, rode back to Mount Airy, and they brought the car to him on a trailer. They rolled it off the trailer and went back to Winston-Salem, never showed him nothing. Well, these cars are a little difficult to drive anyway because they have pedals, you know, all the way down is low, you take your foot off, it's high, you hold it in the middle, it's neutral. Well, this car, the band, is not adjusted properly from the factory, which they should have figured that out at the dealership. So there was no actual neutral. So Clem is out in his yard trying to go forwards and backwards, and he bumped into a couple little things. The fenders got a couple little nicks in them. And his buddy come over on his mule, and he says, "Clem, that there machine is gonna kill you. It's best we put it up." So they took it down to the barn, they built a false wall, and that was it.
The car stayed sealed in the barn for years, and when Clem passed away, his wife gave the car to their nephew. He, in turn, kept the car in a garage for decades until he sold it to Don Garlits for $8,000. The odometer reading, only 200 miles. To your knowledge, are there any other Model Ts that are even close to this in mileage?
If there are, they would be in the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn. I've never seen one in another facility.
Within 2 months of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the American automobile industry shut down completely. And that makes cars from that 2-month window, nearly 80 years ago, incredibly hard to find.
This Mercury is one of 8 left on the entire planet that we know about. There may be another one or two stuffed away in some barn somewhere. And this is probably the best one. I'll never forget it. I get this phone call. It's this old gentleman down in Tampa. He says, "Do you know what a 42 Mercury convertible is?" I said, "I do. I've seen pictures of them, but I've never seen one." He said, "I have one. If you want to come to Tampa and get it, it's yours." I said, "Oh my God, what's happening?" He said, "Well, I had a heart attack," and he says, "I'm broken-hearted. I don't feel like working on it anymore." And he says, "But I would really love for this thing to be restored." And it drives so nice. It's such a sweetheart to drive, so smooth and so quiet. And this was the first Mercury that I had ever restored, and the reason they're so quiet, they have almost twice as many fasteners holding the body and all together as its counterpart Ford. And that's what keeps them so nice and quiet. She's a real nice addition to this collection, and this car is worth about $250,000.
When we come back, we'll show you an 80-year-old car that still looks great and has all original paint. And an ultra-rare 1960s muscle car disguised as a family sedan. You won't believe the story. All that and more when Topcoat's Magnificent Machines continues.
Topcoat's Magnificent Machines is brought to you by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need. Borla, the world's most winning exhaust. And by Topcoat. Don't just coat it, top coat it.
Welcome back to Topcoat's Magnificent Machines. Don Garlits has an amazing complex here, and it's a definite must-see if you're anywhere near Ocala. On one side, Garlits Drag Racing Museum. It features some of the most significant and amazing cars in the history of the sport. And on the other side, Garlits Antique Car Museum. Dozens and dozens of immaculate automobiles, including an 80-year-old car that, believe it or not, still has its original paint.
It belonged to an old lady in Indianapolis that was chauffeur driven with a Rolls Royce. And this was her car on Tuesday if she needed to go someplace when the chauffeur had his day off. And she didn't use it very much. The car was serviced at the Rolls Royce agency, and the sticker's under the hood on the firewall of the service. This car was polished every week by the chauffeur. And in that year, the cars that were this color in '39, the paint was very thin for some reason on all four fenders, and so after polishing for a few months, the primer started to show through. I had seen that a lot on the 39s as a kid, and of course Ford quickly reshot the fenders for these people because they were influential people, Rolls Royces, chauffeur driven. They didn't quite get the color just right, or they had better paint, who knows what it is, but that was shot by the dealership.
Here's a vehicle that actually saved a lot of lives in its time. It's a 1944 Chevrolet 2-ton pumper, and it's one of few vehicles made during World War II that wasn't geared toward actual military use. It was used by a fire department in Ohio. This example is stunning. All the lettering was done by hand, and it is beautiful. Just another example of one of the magnificent machines you'll find here at Don Garlits Antique Car Museum. And that's not the only fire department truck in Big Daddy's collection. This one is smaller, but it played a big role in fighting fires.
This is a 1948 Studebaker half-ton, and it is red. It was ordered red because it belonged to the fire chief in Montgomery, Alabama in 1948. And this was the hose truck. In other words, they carried the extra hoses to the fire, but if the hydrant was a long ways away. It was ordered with heavy-duty rear springs because when you come back with the hoses, they'd be wet and there'd be a lot of weight. That made it rough riding, so the chief didn't drive it very much. So it only accumulated 16,000 miles over quite a long period. They kept it because they didn't need another one. It was sold at auction, and this guy, he took it home and took green paint and a paintbrush and painted the whole truck green from red. From a truck now that's been inside a building all its whole life, was probably pretty good shape. And he drove down to Florida with it, and he rolled into my place at Sefner, and he said, I got a truck out here I got to sell because I got to get back to Alabama. It's only got 16,000 miles on it. And I looked at it, and all this paint was all over everything, it didn't even tape it up. It just painted around the chrome. And I said, what do you want for it? He said, $400. I took the truck all apart, put it back red like it was supposed to be. Didn't have to rebuild the motor, nothing, all that's nice. It's got a 6-cylinder flathead engine in it, gets excellent mileage, and they were offered with overdrive if you wanted, but this one didn't have it because they never intended to drive on the open highway just around town in Montgomery.
This is really cool. Here we are in front of a junior dragster. This is just absolutely awesome. And there's two really key important things you want to do with something like this that has a lot of speed to it. One, you always want it looking good, right? That's where Topcoat F11 really does a job. I mean, it really shines there. It's not only about looking good, but it's also, speed, right? You want to go as fast as possible. Now, we already know that F11 improves speed when it comes to aircraft, but it also does an amazing job on any machine like that really has higher end speeds. Isn't that right, Mike?
That's right, and also safety. Like with aircraft, you have a problem with the acrylic windshield. Yeah. So like when the sun hits it, you see all the spider webs light up and it blinds you, you can't see. The same issue happens with race cars.
Yeah, on the track.
Yeah, so like with F11, you can use it on aircraft windshields and also race cars. So you can just simply spray it on and wipe it, and it'll fill in a lot of that and make the clarity a lot better, a lot clearer.
You clear, and also the other cool thing is acrylics, I mean, they can get ruined quick. They can crack, they can turn yellow. Top coat, you're extremely safe with that. And again, as Mike said, you really fill in those micro scratches, which is a huge advantage.
Yeah, and even these decals, right? Like you can spray right over those and you can see in real time that it's dramatic, the before and after difference. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
decals do not have any buildup around them or anything like that.
Look at
so
that,
it's a
Mike.
huge deal.
Look at that.
The results are phenomenal.
Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah.
So to learn more, go to topcoat.tv.
We're just getting started here at Don Garlits Antique Car Museum. Just around the corner, a hard-to-find 1955 Chevrolet and a 45-year-old car that's still brand new. No kidding. We'll explain it next on Top Coat's Magnificent Machines. Welcome back to Top Coat's Magnificent Machines. You know, with all the historic cars here at Don Garlits Antique Car Museum, I'm strangely drawn to this one. Why? Because I had a 1971 Karmann Ghia. It was my first car when I was in high school. Now, this one's from 1974, Don, and it's still got the window sticker. Why is that?
Because it's brand new.
This car's brand new.
27 miles on this thing.
How did you get it with only 27 miles?
I've always loved this design. You know, I love Volkswagens, period, but the Karmann Ghia was kind of special. I like streamlining. A guy called me up and he said there's a brand new one in a bankrupt Volkswagen dealership in Sioux City, Iowa. Why don't you go get it? They want $3,000 for it. I got there and the guy's in the showroom and this car is just sitting in the showroom and he's at a little bench like a card table. And he says, I have to tell you that that car may not have the 27 miles on it. We've looked it over and it looks like it's been down the road. So you take a look at it and you make your own decision. We're not selling it to you with any guarantee of the mileage. So I crawled under the car and it was dirty under there. And then I scraped it and it was the Cosmoline from on the ship. Then I slid back to where the mufflers and the exhaust is, and there was a little white piece of paper with the number on it still around one of the pipes. It had never been anywhere, or that'd burn right off. So I hollered back to him, yeah, it does look a little rough under here, but I'll give the $3,000.
But that's not the end of the story. Garlits initially passed on a 1950 Volkswagen Beetle sitting in the same showroom because in those days, Beetles were everywhere. But after a little research, Garlits realized VW only sent 151 Beetles to the U.S. in 1950, so he immediately called the dealer back, and for $1,500, the Beetle was his. If it's rare or has low mileage, you're speaking Don Garlits language. Case in point, how about this 1970 Challenger? It's a former race car with only 29,000 miles on it, and just like Big Daddy's Beetle, it's one of only 151.
I found it in the mid-70s. It had all these racing parts on it, you know, headers and special tires and different manifolds and stuff. So I took it to Mr. Norm's tire shop in Youngstown, Ohio. I got on the phone, I called Centerline, ordered up everything that I needed across the counter, parts. They shipped it all over there to me. Big truck rolled in there with all the parts, took all the racing stuff off, threw it in the dumpster. It was all worthless, right? Put it all back stock, and then Pat and I and the little Yorkie got in it and drove it back to Florida. I paid $6,000 for it, and thought I was really paying a lot of money. And you know, it's a $100,000 car, easy, maybe 150, who knows. What really caused it to be special for me is I tested these cars, and it was a fun test on an oval track. And I've not been much on oval tracks, you know, but this time I drove one of these things around that Utica track pretty fast.
Now that is a great looking Chrysler, and I bet it's pretty loud when you fire it up. But I've got a Chrysler right here that I bet you is even louder. This is a 1952 Chrysler Victory Siren, an air raid siren. The United States employed about 100 of these around the country in some of the major cities at the height of the Cold War. It's powered by a 180 horsepower Chrysler engine, and you can hear it for over 25 miles. Pretty impressive. And here's another pretty impressive Chrysler from Don Garlits' collection.
They only made 2 of these cars. This is a four-door sedan with a Hemi engine. And one of them, it was rumored that was built for the FBI, which is this car, and the other one was for somebody in Kansas City, but coincidentally, both cars went to Kansas City.
But both of the owners didn't really know what they had. Why is that?
Both cars had seen the other car at one time or another, so they thought they were just plenty of them. Didn't realize that was the only two in the whole world. But this is very, very rare. And I guess people just didn't order them, four-door sedans. I guess Chrysler would have put whatever you wanted in there, but you know, it wasn't something they just ran down the line because they were figuring that people that wanted the Hemis were more sporty than the grandmas that wanted four-door sedans. But here we are, four-door sedan, and it's probably worth $150,000 on the open market, I would bet.
There's still more to come from Don Garlits' Antique Car Museum. We'll show you a pair of Chevys, including one that supplied the DNA for what was once the world's fastest dragster, and a fabulous Ford once found by a famous family. Topcoat's Magnificent Machines rolls on.
Topcoat's Magnificent Machines is brought to you by Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radio since 1977. And by Topcoat, the best coatings in the world.
Welcome back to Topcoat's Magnificent Machines. We're at Don Garlits' Antique Car Museum in Ocala, and every car here has an incredible story. Now, this car had a couple of famous owners, but the story of how they came about it is really what intrigues me.
Well, first of all, the car belonged to Margaret Ward. That was the daughter of Montgomery Ward. The car was not built for them. It was built for a South American dignitary, and it was shipped to San Francisco in February of 1940. And while they were waiting on the ship to transport it to maybe Chile or Peru, it was in the San Francisco Exposition. Margaret Ward visited the exposition. It was sitting on a turntable with nice lights shining on it. And she says to Daddy, "I want that car." And of course, Daddy had so much clout with Ford Motor Company because of the fleet buying power. Margaret got the car. But it was built special with the leather interior because of the insect infestation down south, and they were afraid it would eat the mohair. So it's special in that respect, but that respect only. Everything else is bone stock. It has 27,000 miles on it, and the only person that ever drove it of any distance was her.
You know, Don Garlits doesn't do anything halfway. His name's Big Daddy after all, so he does everything big, even when it comes to the little stuff. Here in the museum, he's got thousands of die-cast miniatures. He's got everything from antique cars and trucks to semi-trucks and even race cars. I've even got a couple of the Indy cars he has in his collection, so I figure a few thousand more cars, and I can be just like Big Daddy. Another way to be just like Big Daddy? Well, simply become the greatest drag racer of all time. For Garlits, it all started with a hot rod based on a road-going car from the 1930s.
This is a 1931 Chevrolet, and it's special to me because the chassis in this car is the one that I use in Swamp Rat 1 and all the recreations of the Swamp Rat. There's not many people see them in museums, and this is a nice color combination too, the black fenders. This was very common back in those days. The fenders on most cars were black. I don't know whether you know that or not. The bodies were a different color, and it runs good, 50 horsepower. It's an overhead valve 6. I was a couple of years on this thing. I'll never do another one, but this one was nice. It was a low mileage car, no rust on the metal whatsoever. Came out of Kansas, had been in a garage since 1957. And it came out real nice. I'm quite proud of it.
The 1955 Chevy, the car that marked the beginning of the iconic Tri-5 era. And of course, Don Garlits wouldn't be happy if he owned just any Tri-5.
This is the rarest 1955 Chevy. This is a Del Rey, and the reason it's rare because they charged $250 for that option Del Rey, which only meant it was a two-tone paint job, which meant they painted the top a different color. This was originally would have been a black car, and they put a Naugahyde interior in it. For $250, you didn't get much. And of course, that was what Chevy wanted. They were trying to make money. And most of them were 6 cylinders because people had not accepted the V8 Chevy yet, the hardcore Chevrolet people who'd been 6 cylinders for years. But this one is a V8 with a power pack. I always wanted one because I had one originally in 1955 when they came out. And I used that car 150,000 miles towing Swamp Rat 1 on a trailer. So I always was looking for one, and when this one came up, this one had come out of California. It was an old lady's car out there, and when she died, she left it to the grandson. He went to California and got it from Sioux City, Iowa. Took it all apart, and of course that was the end of it for him. Had to do quite a bit of work to it. But I put a lot of miles on it, and it's a fun car, and I'm so happy I got it. It's only worth maybe $50,000 on the open market, but it's special to me. I wouldn't take $100 for it.
Well, how about one more nugget to go along with this fabulous feast for the eyes? It's Top Coat's top pick for the week, and it's a 1954 MG-TF. It's just like the one Don Garlits bought for his late wife Pat back in 1956 when they were just in their early 20s, and it's one of the finest TFs in the world. Sad to say, but we are out of time. Man, we're sure glad you came along for this inside look at Don Garlits Antique Car Museum. This place is truly an American treasure. Next week, it's poetry in motion as some incredibly rare and historic race cars hit the track for the Sonoma Speed Festival. We'll see you next time on Top Coat's Magnificent Machines.